Good morning, Brandon. How are you?
Good morning, James. Everything is great over here. How's everything there where you are?
Always beautiful day outside today. Getting some stuff done. I'm glad to have you on and talk to you about your journey in self-storage. Tell me some things, what you got going on, what your challenges are in self-storage. Tell me anything you want to tell me. You can even tell me to off, I don't care. So that's the kind of guy that I am. So whatever you want to do to talk about, I'm here for you. And let's find out some things that's going on in Brandon's world.
Heck yeah, I'm ready.
Cool. All right, so let's start out with your journey. How did you get going in your journey?
Yeah. Man, I think I'm like everybody else that I talk to in storage, and you don't necessarily go in and be like, hey man, I gotta get into storage, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of those things you get into investing and you get into where you're looking and analyzing at deals, and you make your way from like the residential market to commercial. And I've been in real estate investing for over 17 years now.
Okay.
And I've done everything from land to commercial buildings to flip houses and residential rentals and all that kind of stuff. And
Been there.
about 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to purchase my first storage facility.
Okay.
And I've been knowing about storage for like 20 years because I have a mentor and he owns a couple of storage facilities here locally. And he's always like, man, you got to get into this. You got to figure a way. And I kept telling him, like, yeah, but dude, like, there's not a lot of them. It's really hard to come by these deals. You just don't see these things come up for sale. And so about 3 years ago, when I saw one come up, I said, hey, I gotta act on this. I gotta get in.
Take
And
a run at it. Take a run at it. Yeah.
even if I swing and miss, I'm out there trying to figure it out. And
I
so,
got to shout out to the mentors because the people that take the time to
yeah,
mentor us, because my brother is my mentor, and I
yeah,
give a shout out to him. His partner Robbie, one of my mentors, you know, um, I shout out to him because it's it's a different type of person to take that amount of time and help educate you and give you resources and say, look, here's my Rolodex. Just tell them that I sent you. That
yeah,
they built that for you millennials and Gen Zers. A Rolodex was this little thing that had business cards in it. Okay, so they're
yeah,
giving you your Rolodex, and their Rolodex that they built years doing, and they say, hey, look, here's my resources. Let me know what you need, and then I'll introduce you. And that I found that a lot in self storage that a lot of people do that, and me including me. You see me promoting stuff all the time. There's different companies that I've dealt with, people I've met throughout the last 5 years that I recommend all the different companies. So I shout out to the mentors. I just didn't want to go off on a tangent, but I
yeah.
think that it's needed. And I've
It
mentored
really
people,
is.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they've made purchases, and I'm excited about that because not only does it help them get their process done and get their feet into it, but it also puts a little money in your pocket if you're doing it right. You just say, look, I'll help you along the way, and I'll get you to where you're going. Just give me a little something. We got to keep the
yep.
lights on, right?
That's right. That's right.
So
And,
go
and
ahead.
James, to your point, man, like what you do in this space and storage and what other mentors are doing, all over America, it's so impactful. And yeah, there's a lot of time and energy spent in that. But there's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of people that you can just say, hey, I'm gonna go talk to them about storage and have them just give you all their information. I will say this about the storage industry in comparison to other real estate and
Yeah,
investing corners of the market.
yeah,
Storage facilities, the owners, the managers, everybody is so nice. I
yeah,
mean, I really haven't come across somebody who's been like mean or just off-putting. Everybody's really helpful to help people. And if I call somebody, whether they're like down the street or in another state, yeah, I really get good reactions and positive responses. And more so than anything, everybody's is just so willing to help. And you don't find that in like the multifamily and industrial parts of real estate. It's quite the opposite. So it's very refreshing, and it's a good place to be.
yeah. And I know from experience myself, even going to networking events and in the conferences and all that. Like you go there and everybody just like, well, what do you do? And then you talking to them and they go, oh, well, I do this, so maybe I can help you with that. And you're like going, whoa, I do cost segregation, and here's my card. And of course they're doing business, but that's also part of it. But at the same time, they're not like going, you know, hey, how you doing? Here's my card. Hey, how you doing? Here's my card. Hey, how you doing? Here's my card. No, they're coming
Yeah.
up. You're chit chatting with them. You're BSing. You're talking about your kids. You're talking about this. You're creating a relationship, and that relationship is very needed in the self storage industry because and I say a true relationship or a true friendship of sorts
Right.
for business that ends up sometimes. Some of my closest friends are in storage because they have a question, they call me, and the next thing you know, I know about their kids. I know that
Yeah.
this one's not sleeping overnight because it's the bottle's not working. And I just go like, and then I go, well, I have two grown kids, so I can tell you what I've done, and the next thing you know, you make friends, right? So it's a great. I
Yeah.
enjoy it thoroughly. I've said it many times on any types of podcasts and everything that and the webinars that I do for some of the groups. It's a great business to be in. So
Yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me just say, I really, truly, um, most of the time when I get into something, when it comes to like real estate and especially investing, I know that it could be short-lived. I know that, like, man, we could have an exit ramp, and I get off and never come back to this, and I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
I don't feel that about storage. I really I'm enthusiastic about it. I I love the whole like the business model itself because it is where real estate and business intersect. And so that's somewhere I like to be. And I don't know if I'll ever get out of this storage business, and I'm okay with that.
I had the same conversation about where real estate and business meet with a residential broker that is brokering a deal for self-storage right now. Okay.
Okay.
So I found an off-market deal. I've been talking to the middleman for a while, and he put me through to directly to the real estate agent who's friends with the people, and he's trying to help them out. And he's, giving me numbers and everything. And I said, well, let me explain to you from a business / real estate mindset. And he was like, well, I never even thought about it like that. I said, well, that's because you're looking at the real estate. You're trying to sell buildings. Okay. And rightly so, because without buildings, you don't have storage, right? Unless you're
Yep.
storing open parking. And look, if there's extra land, store something on it, right? Make some money
Absolutely.
off it. But
Yep.
he was looking at it as, hey, we got I'm going to make up numbers to leave the person's name out of it and everything, but we got a property that's worth $4 million because a bank came in and said that's what it's worth. And I go, yeah, but you got paperwork that shows it's only worth $3.2 million. And he
Yeah.
goes, well, I'm confused on how that is. So I explained, I had to learn the guy, right? I had to teach him. I was like, well,
Yeah.
listen, we don't just
Yeah.
buy the buildings, we buy the business. And if the business can't support the buildings, then we have no deal,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yep.
said, and I can go through all the numbers with you, and there was some paperwork missing and stuff, but it, we're still in talks, so that's why I wanted to keep the anonymous on the names and everything. But I was able to find some extra money in the facility that he wasn't able to provide off of all the management summary reports and the P&L combined. They didn't the rent rolled it and looked right to and I found out that they were at different times. They're giving me a rent roll from this month and then an earlier month and then giving me the management summary report from a different month. So the numbers just
Hmm.
didn't give me the two that jive together so I can go this equals that. Okay, bam. Now let me underwrite it. All the numbers work, occupancies here, occupancy there, whatever, and I'll make it work. Well, that took the property up to that close to $4 million instead of 3.2, where he thought I was trying to steal the property. And I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not trying to steal the property. I want the accurate numbers so that I know what I'm buying, right?
That's
Because
right.
if there's extra money, woohoo for me. But if there's not extra money, and woohoo for them, like, and we never want it to be
Yep.
woohoo for them. Not that we don't, fair deals are fair deals and good deals are
That's
good
right.
deals, but
That's
nobody
right.
ever wants to buy a bad deal. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
I've
just
been
my
in one of
little
those,
offshoot on that one.
and I've been in one of those too, James. And it's always these residential real estate, not knocking them, the residential real estate people. They're like, "Hey, man, I'm selling this for my friend. This is how much it should go for based off this last storage sale and everything." And yeah, we had to come in, James, and we had to say, unfortunately, it doesn't work like the comps, like the price per square foot that your neighbor sold, like
Correct.
residential. And it is really tricky to be able to come in and take the information they give you, because sometimes that's pencil and paper, sometimes it's nothing at all,
You're gonna
and
have to
be
tell
able
me
to
that one. I
convert
got
it. Yeah, and be
I
able to
bought one
see
in
that
July
stuff.
that was pencil and paper. No computer system at all. Like
You gotta
some of
love it,
them didn't
man.
even have leases.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
you gotta love it.
oh yeah.
That's
So
even better.
I know what you mean there.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing is like I think where we come in from like acquisition standpoint of underwriting, I think it is good for us to explain to the sellers and to their agents, hey, here's how this works, and here's how I'm underwriting it, and I like to give them that underwriting whenever I'm in a deal or trying to get in on a deal and show them and explain to them, hey, this is how I'm underwriting it. And
Right.
also leave them a little disclaimer and say, hey, this is how the institutional investors are underwriting it.
Correct.
So I can offer you this, they're going to offer you a little less or none at all. So
Right.
being able to like catch them up to speed and educate them, it's a little bit of tough time and takes a little bit of energy and patience. But yeah, that's something that has to be done to get everybody on the same page.
I worked on a property with a real estate broker, a commercial real estate broker who specifically is in self-storage, and it took me a year to buy this property
Yeah.
because people would go in there and they make an offer and it was better than mine, and then they would go out to the property and they'd look at it and they go, this property ain't worth it, and then they would leave.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
took a year for them to realize that my offer, which I bought the property, was the
Nice.
right offer because
Yeah.
of the because of the rent roll and because of their expenses and everything like that. And now that property is holding its own. I'm not going to say I'm not making
All right.
millions of dollars doing self storage. When we sell, we'll talk about that, right? But
Yeah,
as
right,
we're
right.
running them, we're trying to cash flow on a lot of deals, right? And everybody's trying to cash flow. Everybody wants mailbox money, and some of them don't give you mailbox money right away.
That's right.
That's why it's a 3 to 5 year hold. Your first couple years, you're getting all the hiccups out and everything. And a lot of people that are coming in new to storage, which I'm glad that we're having this conversation, so when I post it, other people can see it. Is that when
Yeah,
new people are coming in, they're thinking they're going to buy a property and then they're just going to make money.
yeah.
Well, it depends. If you buy it right and you pay cash for it, it could give you a 12% return,
That's right.
right? It
Yeah.
could, but my aunt had balls, right? Um,
Yeah.
it also depends on how you approach the deal. So like I come into deals, like I have investors, Do I have money in the bank? Sure. Isn't it better to use other people's money? Absolutely. Right. So
Yes.
I go get investors and I give them a decent return on it, and they get paid first and I get paid last. And I'm okay with that. And I go in there and make sure the property looks good, do all the things you got to do to a property. But it's not as easy as people think, just I'm going to buy a property and make money. Well, okay. I mean, you can buy a property and make money, but if your expenses are too high, you don't do anything about it. Um, you know, you can put money in the bank and in a money market account and get better return than you're going to get on a property if you don't have the right setup. And you know that. I'm
Yeah.
just so
Oh, yeah. And let me just say too, talking to investors and people that haven't invested into storage before, they kind of have this like pre mindset of like, hey man, I need to get at least 5 to 8% of my money, and they always want more, which is okay. We all do. And so it is a delicate dance with them to explain to them, hey, listen, there's here's our aim, here's our goal, but this is our timeline, and this is how long it's going to take. And most of them think it's a plug and play model, and it's not. as you know, if you have to rebrand or like just even put a facility on Google or make a website or get the
Yeah,
operations or operating systems up and rolling, those take a while. And to be able to also, let all of the tenants know, hey, we're under new ownership management here. This is how we're going to be working. It is
it's
a
the
lot to
community
take
too. You
on.
got to let the community know because
Yeah, yeah.
they might have all bad taste in their mouth from the last people that were there. The one
Yep.
I bought in July, it was like a crack house of facilities, right? And we had to
Yep.
turn that around. We're still doing it. We had to turn it around, get rid of all the riffraff, start bringing
Yep.
in people that are going to pay, and then show everybody, look, hey, we're putting all new doors up over here. Like we're
Yeah.
adding money to this property. We put in a manager on site who doesn't collect the cash and keep it, right? So that they come back in 3 months from now and say, you owe us $2,000. And you go, I paid every month because they went,
Yeah.
okay, I can smoke this money, right? Like, so it now has to be when people drive by that facility, they go, wow, they really cleaned that place up. You painted it, you cleaned it
Yep.
up, you put some signs out front, you make, draw some attention to it, you get a website, like all those things cost money, right? But
Yep.
not only to the customers that have been there through the lumps and bumps of the old business, mom and pop type shops that just go like, ah, don't worry about it, Bill. You're good for your money, and then they don't put them in the system. There's no computer system. It says here that
Yep.
Bill didn't pay last month. Oh, that's all right. Just he told me he'll pay next month. What? Right? So as
Yeah.
a business
Yeah.
owner, we go, and maybe that's why I'm bald, but as a as a
Me
as a
too.
property owner, like I always tell people that there's different types of ownership in storage, right? You could be an owner operator where it's your job.
Yep.
You can be an owner where somebody else runs your property for you, but you have to pay for it. But guess
Yep.
what? I don't have to answer the phone every day. Okay. Well, with 16 properties under partnership with me and my other partners,
Yeah.
I don't answer any phone calls, only if there's an emergency at some of the sites. Like there was a cat got trapped in for 3 days over the weekend. They didn't know who to call. I'm like, well, you got to make so I call the management company and I go, just make a decision, call the fire company. Do like, I don't need to know about this. Hey, the gate's not working anymore. Okay, I got a guy, let me call my construction guy. I'll call him. He'll have somebody come out there. That's the only calls I want. I don't want somebody calling up
Yeah.
going, hey, why did you lock out the back gate? I always use that gate twice a week and I'm the only one that uses it. I'm like, how did you get my number?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I have a management company, and I
Yeah.
have a business number and you're calling me on my cell. I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah. 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 No,
Whoever
no.
gave it
It's
out, they're in trouble,
yeah.
right?
You either want to like cuss them or you want to be like, hey, I have some collections. Maybe you can look up some of these people and track them down. If you're this good, to get my number.
Right, right. If you're
Yeah.
gonna want something from me, I want something back from you, right? You got my cell
That's
phone.
right.
You call
That's
me
right.
at 8 o'clock at night, and talking about why did I do this,
Yeah.
and of course the rules changed real quick, and I said, I find out that my manager, well, it wasn't my manager that was given my cell phone number. It was a guy that lived on site because we have a
Okay.
house,
Okay.
we
Yeah.
have RV pads, and there was a guy that
Yep.
was living on site at this property, and he was doing a lot of work for us on the side to help offset his rent, and he was
Mhm.
doing a great job. Um, but he was like, I don't know, you might want to talk to the new owners. And then he was like, blah, and I was like, I got off, I was like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
matter of fact, lose my number, because
Yeah.
there's different types, there's the REITs where they don't even know what's going on with their properties because they have that third party management running it, and then there's somebody in between. You got the owner operators. Me personally, and I think you probably feel the same way, is I don't want a job. I don't want to
Yeah.
pay for a building,
Mhm. Mhm.
pay for a business, and then work. I want to go and find another property. I want that to be my job. I don't
That's
want my
right.
job to be running that facility. So therefore, as an owner operator, nope, I just want to be an owner, hire a third party management company to do it,
Yep.
and let it go through its course. And then after the 5 years, the property is great, in value, and then you make your
Yeah.
money, your decent money on the back end. Sorry,
Yeah.
go off on a tangent.
Yeah. And I mean, like to that point too, I get those calls too. And I do the same thing. I'm like, yo, number one, how'd you get my number? Number two, like let's solve this as fast as possible because I don't want to be dealing with
Absolutely.
this, or maybe we can call somebody else for this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I do think like when people come into storage, it there's a learning curve. There's nothing that is like quick and easy. It's you've got to
I'm
learn
still learning.
fast. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And that's that too, again, like when we talk to other storage owners and we talk to people that have been in the game for 20, 30 years, and we're asking these, hey man, how do you do this? And they're giving us the answers. We're trying our best to, follow that method or employ that into our processes and systems. And so, yeah, it's very valuable to be able to have some kind of management or somebody that's taking care of your place
Mhm.
because we're people like you and I, we're ripping and running. We are trying to get the next deal. It's the next deal. We close this deal, let's get the next deal going.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of stuff in our deal flow, that we're working on. I know you're a lot like I am, but we're not working on one deal. We're working on lots of deals. And we know that that could take 6 months, it could take 2 years.
Right.
And
I
and
mean,
I totally agree, man. I think people need to focus on who, not what, to solve their problems whenever they take on a storage facility or investing in storage. Just have somebody in there taking care of it, so they're not having to sign up and do the job themselves.
yeah. So a lot of it too, like you were talking about the deals, and then I think the more you keep the people into the deal, like as more that you keep the relationship going in a deal, whether it's you go to the property and you visit the person that you're buying it off of, or it's who's selling it,
Yep.
or whatever the company that's selling it, and whatever, you keep that personalized relationship involved, you're going to stand out amongst these people who just call blindly and go, "You want to sell your property?" I got somebody called me, not even a week and a half ago, and they said, "Hey, I know you own this property at this address," and I was like, "Okay," and he was like, "And I talked to your partner, and he said that that everything has a price, and if you're interested in buying, and we just bought it in July, right? So we got somebody wanting to buy it already. We're not even done doing
Gotta love
construction
it.
stuff, right?" So I said to the guy, I said, "Okay, I think my property's worth, let's call it $2 million. Okay. And they're telling me that they're going to give me $3 million for it. Yeah, yeah. I said, okay. So here's what I'll do. And I said to the guy, I said, look, I know how it works. You're going to want all my paperwork. And I'm going to waste my time and go through that whole rigmarole giving you all that information. And then you're going to come back to me and say, it's not worth $3 million. It's only worth $2 million.
Yep.
Well, guess what? It wasn't for sale to begin with because I'm not going to sell it until I can make 3 million plus. But
Right.
I'll sell it right now if you're going to give me $3 million for it. But nobody's going to give me $3 million for a property that's worth $2 million, right?
That's
And if
right.
they
Yeah.
do, shame on them. But hey, 10 months and I make $1 million. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Cash that check. Yeah. Cash that
Cash,
check as fast as
put that
possible. If
right
somebody
into my
writes
bank account, and I'm going to find another property, right?
That's right.
And then I'm going to buy a property that's 1.5 million, and I'm going to go raise $1 million in cash to fix the property up and turn that property into a $3 million property. And I'm going to do it again, except this
Yep.
time I don't have to raise as much money, as the first one, and just keep going to the next one, the next one. So
That's
long
right.
and short of that story is that I sent him back an email because he was like, "Hey, talk to the people I represent, and they were interested in your property. This is what they'd like to see." And I sent it back to him, and I was kind of bit of a jerk towards the end of it, but I just said, first of all, the property's not for sale. Second of all, if
Yeah.
you're willing to give me $3 million for the property, we'll close in 90 days and it's yours.
Yep.
I said, but if you're here to waste my time to tell me my property's only worth $2 million, and I'm paraphrasing on all the numbers because I'm making them up as we go.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you're going to tell me it's only worth $2 million, and you're going to put me through all this stuff, I said, I'm going to make it known that's what you're doing. I have a
Yeah.
lot of a network and I
Yeah.
have a lot of resources to let it be known.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point too, as a storage owner, whew, man, it's tough because we get those phone calls all the time, right? People, hey, let me buy your stuff. Let me buy your stuff. And from being in acquisitions like we are, we know how it works, and we know the games, the tricks, and all that kind of fun stuff. And
And we
so
know what the property's worth. Like
yes,
like
yes,
I look
yes,
at I look at numbers every day on all the properties that I own, And I go, if I were to sell this property right now based off the monthly income, this property is worth $1.4 million. And somebody's saying, we'll give you 2.5. Write me the check, brother.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Write me the
yeah,
check.
yeah, yeah.
But they
If you
won't,
don't
because they're
sight
they're trying
unseen,
to,
you just write the check. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's
but
right.
they're not, because the value of it's 1.4 million. Maybe I have 200,000 of investor money, or 400,000. So I need to get somewhere between 1.8 for it, and they're going to give me 2 million, 2.5 million. Okay, I'll make a profit off of it. But they're going to come
Yeah,
back in and go, well, based on the numbers, it's only worth 1.6. And I go, well, 1.6 isn't going to do me anything. Go, shoot,
yeah,
be
yeah.
gone.
And and too, like what you were saying earlier too, James, is when we're putting offers and stuff on these properties and stuff, and we're putting a realistic, like good deal, like, hey, this is a good deal, this is how I underwrite it, this is what I'm offering you. And sometimes, those REITs or somebody will come along and be like, I'll pay you more, and the seller will go with them. Sometimes it's not bad to be in second place.
Yeah.
Especially with the last couple of years, how things have been going. I have had a lot of callbacks just in the past year of people I put in contracts or offers in 2 years ago, and I'm like, hey man, here's my price. It's good for 365 days. Call me back if this other deal falls through. And so I've had a
I'm
lot of
going to
those
pause for
lately.
a second, real
Yeah, yeah,
quick. Okay.
yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. It seems like I was gone for a while, but really for everybody else, it's just like that. So, um, yeah, so let's talk. So let's go back to the journey of
Yeah.
Brandon's journey. So you bought a property a couple years back. You're into it, a couple deep properties now, six properties, I think you said, right?
Yes, yes.
Do you have partners? What do you, how are you doing your setup as far as your LLCs? You doing them solo or?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I like to do, James, is I'm like you, man. I would like to find partners. I like to use other people's money as much as possible
Sure.
for this. I do own a couple of facilities 100% myself,
Good.
and just so you know, I'm always looking for partners on those because I don't like to be in stuff myself.
Yeah.
It seems like, hey, that's great, you own it, you can do all the stuff yourself, but you truly are doing all these stuff yourself, and so
Yeah.
I've
And no
started
sounding
out.
board.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes. And so I started out, I was able to purchase one, and then a couple months after that, I purchased another one. And so what I did is I started teaming up and finding people who wanted to invest in this. And most of the people were green. They had no understanding of storage. I was just able to show them as I analyzed and underwrote the deal, say,
Mhm.
hey, look, this is where we're at. This is where I think we can be. And it really does take like a business mindset to look forward in the future, to plan, to try to boost revenue, to try to boost economy, to try to see through all this stuff and information that they gave, like the old owners gave you, to see if that's even valid or not. And so
Right.
the first couple of acquisitions that I had on storage, we're having to do a rebrand. I'm raising rates 40% on the people that are there because they haven't raised rates in a decade.
Yeah.
It really was a whirlwind and a learning curve, just to try to work with people while also making your facility as nice and presentable as possible. And now I pretty much have a system where, hey, if we buy one, I already have the investors lined up. We're going to the closing table together. And it could be a deal where it's me and somebody else. It could be a deal where it's me and eight other people, like in a syndication model.
Right.
And so being able to be clear, being able to explain thoroughly how this is going to go, setting up the systems, and check-ins with those investors, to try to I don't sleep good at night knowing that I have to make other people money and making sure, so I have to have this stuff in place, or my sleep is just off. And so
I agree.
what we what we try to do as much as possible is try to automate and integrate what needs to be done at these facilities. So I'm a big sales marketing person, so aesthetics really matter to me, and I know that storage is hyper local, and so if it needs paint, if it needs landscaping, a new sign, website, Google presence, you have to really dig into all this stuff. And like we had talked about before, this nothing happens fast. This is
Right.
all time,
Right.
and it takes time to build up. And just because you're able to implement a new system, put a fresh coat of paint on the building, tenants aren't just going to be running,
We've been waiting for
trying to
that.
get in
Knock, knock,
there.
knock, knock, knock. We've been waiting for you to
Yeah.
do that. Here's my money.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It just doesn't work like that. And so
Yeah.
you really start to understand and see what actually moves the needle on occupancy, what actually drives your revenue.
Right.
And so implementing insurances to tenants, being able to say, hey, listen, we're raising the rents because we're adding security cameras, we're adding extra lighting, we're adding an extra gate,
Mhm.
whatever that is, as far as like an added value, you've got to be able to understand that and communicate that. That's really the hard part that I found in the storage industry, and with calling these other storage owners, because we're all looking for new deals, the next deal,
Sure.
and I found that to be and it's kind of like much like when people call me or you and they're like, hey man, you want to buy your property, you want to do this, and it's like, man, I ain't got time for this, I got real stuff going on, or I got
Right.
other things, other fires I'm putting out.
Right.
And so what happened is I started reaching out more to the community. I started becoming more a part of self storage associations. I started watching your podcast and things that you are doing, and being able to connect with these people that are in storage to be able to learn.
Right.
And again, it's unlike any other business, because if you're a gas station, you walk across to the gas station across the street, they don't want to talk to you. You're
Nope.
their enemy. They don't want to.
Nope.
But
Car
in
wash.
storage,
Nope. They don't.
yeah,
They're like, you're stealing my business from me.
yeah.
You
And
know?
in storage, it's not really like that.
Mm-mm.
It's I have found even some of the people that are across the street, down the street from me, I'll go in and introduce myself and say, hey, I'm Brandon. I've got this storage place down the street. Anytime y'all are full with these, please send these people my way, and I'll
Yeah.
return the favor.
Yeah.
And that's a way to work with your competition. And again, storage is like that. People are nice enough to be able to help you out, and it don't work like that in other businesses. I know
No,
because
no. One of
I've
the
been in
things that
enough.
I noticed in storage too is like, let's say that you don't have climate control. Let's say you just all yours are drive ups, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
guy down the road has climate control. You say, look, if somebody comes in here looking for climate control and I don't have it, I'm going to send them to you. But if you have somebody that has to park a boat and I have a
Yeah,
boat parking in the area, just send them
yep,
down to me. And
that's
that's
right.
it. Like we don't have to go out to dinner and hang out, you know. But if you it'd be great if you do, just because now you can share swap stories, right? But
Yep,
you know, if they have something you don't have and you have something they don't have, it's great to go to them.
yep,
Like even some like so traditional storage versus boat and RV, right? So I have a boat and
mhm,
RV facility, and the rest of them are traditional storage. And I'm learning a ton about boat and RV. Okay, just because I mean, it's a different client, which is fantastic.
yes,
You know, it's valuable equipment that they're putting in there, whatever it may be,
yep,
cars, boats, boat trailers, RVs, jet skis, quads, side by sides,
yeah,
all this different stuff, right? The toys that they have, right? So they have the money to pay for it, right? But
that's
at the
right.
same time, if no one knows you're there, you have to bring them to there. So marketing, right? And I always
Yeah,
say like, well, I'm literally a quarter mile where the one location is in Rockport, Texas. I'm a quarter mile from uh, the bay this way and a bunch of marinas, and I'm a quarter mile this way from the bay and a bunch of marinas, right? So once they go into
mhm,
the bay, they're right into the Gulf Coast, right? They're right into the Gulf of Mexico or
yeah,
America, whatever you want to call it. But they're in the Gulf, right?
yeah,
So it's easy for them just to drop their boat at the marinas. And I say to my management company, I'm like, go down there and start an alliance with them. Say, look, let's do a marketing campaign. I'll put up a sign of yours at my facility, and you put up a sign of yours. I mean, I put a sign of yours at my facility and mine at your facility, right?
yep,
Or let's do some tchotchkes, some. And I always go back to boat and RV, the floating keychains, that they can put on
yep,
their key in their boat, because if it falls off and it goes in the water, whoa, there it is, you didn't lose it. So
yep,
you have to build alliances with these people, even in other businesses,
Yeah,
or the same business, like when if let somebody comes in and they need a 55-foot unit, I only have 45-foot unit. That's the
yeah,
biggest one I have. Okay. Well, if they need 55 feet, well, then I'm going to go to the guy down the road who I know has it. But if I don't have a relationship with him, or it's an online all full remote, I'm just going to say, sorry, it doesn't fit here. You're going to have to find somebody else. We can offer you outside parking, and offer them what we can. But at the same time, building that relationship with the people in your community, like doing things as like pro bono stuff, donating stuff like,
yeah,
hey, what we auctioned off let's say, I don't know, you auctioned off something and you find out that there's, you know, 4 cases of notebooks in one of the units, right? And then you go, hey, we can't use them. Let's donate them to the school.
yep,
Put a
yep,
bunch of Top Lock, my brand's Top Lock, put a bunch of Top Lock stickers on them and donate them to the school,
yep.
right? And just say, like, you guys can use them, do whatever you want with them, because we
Yeah.
can't. And the auctions
Oh yeah.
cleared it out. They're like, I'm not taking them.
And it doesn't matter if it's like rural or a big city. I
Yeah,
think you're all over it, James. You've got
yeah,
to be able to plug into that network and let them know. And especially in regards to like parking. I we just added parking to some of our facilities in the past year, and so it's a little different game than just like obviously like the garage, or the
yeah,
covered stuff. And
yeah.
so what we did is we went to all of the mechanics and the auto body shops within like the 3 mile radius and said, hey, listen, y'all need overflow, we got it. I'll cut you guys a deal. Here's a rate I offer. And so you really have to be able to reach out and work with your community as much as possible to be able to get business. And like you said, it also it goes both ways. Um, we're sponsoring, flag football teams and other like things in communities where
T-ball,
we're at.
T-ball. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
advertising,
yeah,
it's on all their
we're talking like
shirts.
a yeah, we're talking like $100, $150, and it goes. I will say it goes a lot further in a rural setting compared
Yeah,
to a big city, but it
yeah,
doesn't matter really. It's you got to be able to get your name out there and promote as much as you can, and it's
yeah.
to your benefit. It's to everybody's benefit.
Well, I tell a lot of people when I talk to them, I'm like, if you have a fenced in patch of dirt, there's no reason why that you're not making money on that fenced in patch of dirt.
Yes.
You should have parking. How hard is it to go up to that fence and hang OP01,
Yep.
OP02, open parking one,
Yep.
open parking two, open parking three. You park there, don't hit the fence. You park there, you park there. And now you have 5 different spots, and now you're making, let's call it $200 a month, 250 a month because you're charging
Yep.
$50 a month. If there's start with the cheapest thing first to make money,
That's right.
and
Yep.
if it's free to you and all you have to do is, I say free, if it's open space and you have a storage facility, even if you're going to build there later, that's
Right.
perfectly
Yep.
fine. In the
Yep.
meantime, make money off of it.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I'm developing my first facility that I'm ground up on, and you talk to the banks and everything, and they want to be like, hey, what's going on? What you doing here? And I told them like,
Yeah,
hey, I would like to build the whole thing, but if y'all only let me build half of it, I'm going to use the other half of parking. So
yeah,
don't discount me. Like I'm going to be making money off of this, whether you
right,
guys underwrite it or not like that. And
right.
so yeah, you really got to become creative and we know that there is a market for people that want to come and park their RV, their boats, or their
HOA.
buses. I love them. I
I
love them,
love
and
them. I hate
especially
them. I will.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
lived
yeah.
in one. I lived in one when I was
That's right.
married to my
Yep,
ex-wife, and
yep,
and you couldn't even change out your mailbox to a different mailbox. You had to be the one that they
for
picked,
sure.
right? So I hate them, but in
Yeah,
storage, I love them because you can't
yeah,
park
yeah.
your RV in the driveway, you can't park your trailer in the driveway, you can't park your boat in the driveway. So what do they have to do? They have to find a place to park them. That's what you're talking
That's
about.
right.
Go and
Yeah,
add that to your facility if you have the land, fence it in, put some cameras up. Hey, we have secured parking.
yeah. I had a buddy that he had an industrial building, and he has storage facilities, but he had a big industrial parking lot, gravel, fenced. I mean, this thing is probably 5 acres. And I
Right.
told him one day, I said, hey, man, you need to be parking like buses and RVs and stuff like that. And he's like, "Can you do that?" Within 60 days, we had this whole thing ready to roll. And he was making a little over $2,000 a month off his graveled lot, you know. And so there is a
Sure.
big opportunity there in the future. And I'm starting to see it a little more in storage where people are going strictly for parking storage and being able to implement and add storage parking at their facilities. And so I think it's a win. I think there is
The, a-
a need for it big time.
the average Joe person that has an RV that uses it twice a year isn't going to want to pay to put that thing in a $350 unit every month. Okay. So they're going to want to park it either in enclosed, covered parking or open parking. And your
Yep.
open parking doesn't even have to be graveled. It
No.
could be a patch of grass that you have left over. And you say,
Yeah.
look, that's all we have available, especially if you're the, you're the one in the market, right? It's all we have available. Maybe you bring a couple boards and lay them down when you back your trailer up, right? So
Yep.
that's sitting up off the ground. And that's
Yeah.
it. Like make our facility down there on the coast has probably 2 acres of open parking because it's so much it's full.
Yeah.
It's I believe it's like 99.9% full, the open
Isn't that
parking.
wild? Same.
But it's only
Same.
like
Yeah.
$55 a month, right?
Yep.
Whereas we got the full size enclosed parking, which is like $200 a month, and then it goes down
Yep.
to $100 a month. Then it goes down to $79 a month for enclosed with roll up door, no remotes and stuff. And we're a Class
Yeah.
C property, so like there's if you want to park it outside on a pad of concrete, okay, you're going to pay more money for it. I don't have that.
Yep.
Good
Yep.
luck finding, not good luck, but good luck find it someplace else because I don't have it. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're okay with just parking it outside in the Texas sun, absolutely. Here,
Yep.
what spot do you want? And funny, we have another section that we were going to do something different with. And I said, put parking spots in it right now because
Yeah.
now we'll have another 15 or 20, so 30 because it's
Double
double
side.
wide,
Yep.
right? We could have another 30 spots just to park there.
Yep.
And 30 times 50. I mean, come on. What's
Yeah.
that?
And that's the one thing James is like, I really, when I got into it, I was like, I don't really know too much about this. But come to find out, people will pay for parking. Like you said, uncovered or covered. And I have a facility that we have unparking or uncovered parking, and then we have basically like a top, like a covered parking.
Yeah.
And when we first bought it, I was like, hey, I think we need to be charging more for our covered parking. And my partners were like, man, we're getting like $300 a spot right now. So I think we're gonna just let that roll for a while. And I was like, what? $300 a month for a covered parking spot? And he's like, yeah, yeah. So I think we're not going to raise around them. We're going to keep them happy because we're making just as much off the parking as we are as our units and everything like that. So I was like, whoa,
Well, not
whoa,
just
hold
that,
so
but
yeah, yeah,
people that have $100,000 RV don't want to have to place the roof in 5 years, right? So they're paying the
absolutely.
$300 a month.
Yep, absolutely. And we've got a waiting list on that kind of stuff. And so you're right. I mean, parking is a big deal in storage. And if you are able to add that, obviously it can be a huge boon
If
to
you have
your
a
revenue
waiting
and
list, you
occupancy.
should be buying land. I'm serious. If you have a
Yeah,
waiting list, you need to buy a piece of land,
yeah,
even if it's a mile or so down the road, run it from the same
agreed.
place and just start putting parking in there. Put
Yeah,
cameras up and put parking in.
yeah, and I will say too, like you and I know this from like being in storage. It really depends on that like county or city. Some of these cities, they're like, we don't want any more storage. We're not issuing this, and so you may have to push out to somewhere more rural, or like I've seen a lot of pieces of land right off the interstates.
Mhm.
No man's land, whether it was like a floodplain, power lines, or anything like that. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you're able to like buy an acre, 2 acre, 3 acres of land for cheap because it's really unusable, storage for vehicles is absolutely a great play.
And you can go and use box wall containers and put them on there and add a little bit
Yep.
all along the outside. You know what you could do is you could
Yep.
buy all the box wall containers, put them all the way around the land, and then put a gate at
Yep.
the front and park all in the middle. And now you have
I've
both.
seen it. Yeah, I've seen it happen, and I've actually been trying to develop some spots like that, more in rural places, but it is very doable. And with the boxable, and I have some storage containers at some of my facilities. Listen, they're more secure than the storage units, as far as like the metal and the rivets and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And I tell people all the time, hey, if you want to put your stuff in a storage container, I would do that. That's what I would
Yeah.
do, because if a tornado rolls through here like they do through Tennessee sometimes,
Yeah.
the storage container is going to be there. The storage units may not be.
Well,
So,
I had this conversation with the gentleman I was telling you that called me the other day that spoke real softly. Um, I had this conversation with him, and he was like, "Well, what about putting shipping containers on there?" And I said, "Well, the good and the bad about shipping containers is they're dirt cheap, right? You can get it for two
yeah,
thousand bucks, $3,000 a piece." I said the bad thing about them is you're going to have to convert all of them, okay?
yep,
Because you're not going to just plop them there and then have some 70-year-old woman that wants to put stuff in storage try to open up those big doors.
yep,
Okay.
that's
Because
true.
I have a couple of it at one of my facilities that were there, and I just said, you know what, I'm leaving them. I don't want to pay to have them removed. If somebody wants to rent them, $40 a month, they got an 8 by 20, $40 a month. You can
Yep,
have the whole thing. Okay. Comma, however, they seal up tight. If there's moisture in there, everything holds the moisture. So if you want to convert them, you got to put roll up doors on them or turn them
yep,
long ways and make them into sections, right?
that's right.
And then you have to put some sort of ventilation in them because
Yep,
they seal
that's
up and
true.
they seal up whatever's in it. If there's a smell in
Yep,
there, there's a smell staying in there. If there's
yep,
moisture in there, the moisture staying in there, right? So yeah, to start something out and throw a couple shipping containers on there, I get it. Um,
yeah,
I would sooner go and buy like and I promote Boxwell because I know them and I've used their products. So
yeah,
therefore I promote them. And Boxwell has the ones they come on the back of the truck. You can buy the 10 by 20s or you can buy the 8 by 20s, depending on what you want on your facility, and they bring them to your site, they drop them off, set them up. It's like $32 a square
yep,
foot.
yep. And it's nice. Like those things are really nice.
And they're considered real property, not real estate. So because they're portable, and you can
Yep,
move them around your facility, they can't charge you tax on them.
yep,
So we're all about saving money. So if I was to ever, honestly, and I've been looking at this property right near my house, it used to be
mhm,
for sale probably 5 years before I got into storage, and it was for
okay,
sale. And it's got a building up front, and in the back of the building, they used to sell shipping containers, or they used to, I don't know, convert them and make them into offices and stuff like that. They're
yeah,
still doing
yeah,
something like that now, but that facility, I'm waiting for it to go up for sale so I can go in there and load that thing with Boxwell units all the way around and butt them up to each other and make aisleways and
yep,
everything because it's already got all the gravel that they need. It's got the fencing and everything. It's got the cameras and the building the building I could just convert it to office space and
that's
or
right.
convert it into an office for my facility or turn it into inside storage,
Yep,
because it's probably a
yeah,
20,000 square foot building. It's a decent sized building. And then
yeah.
there's a huge lot in front of it. Now where everything's expensive in New Jersey, but where it's located is right on the way. You pass it, there's a gas station, you turn right, and you're on the interstate. So
Nice.
everybody that comes in to the neighborhoods near where I live here drive
Mhm.
past it every day because they
Yeah.
get off the interstate, they make that left-hand turn, and it's right there on the left.
Yeah,
So
those are the best.
big signage right off there. It's on your way. Hey, let's stop by the storage unit on the way to work. But hey, this is real convenient. The only other one in the area is on the other side of the interstate at the end of a
Hmm.
neighborhood, right? Backed up against the interstate. But if you drive by, even at 25 mile an hour, if you're not looking to the left because they can't post the signs out the street because the
Hmm.
township won't allow it, if you don't
Yeah.
look, If you don't look, you don't see it, right? So
Yep.
they have to rely strictly on advertising and not traffic.
Yeah.
So
That's tough. But I will say that the facilities that are located like the closest to the interstate as possible, most of the time, if you're able to like have that road like that, like you're saying, the signs, everything to be able like when people pass by you to see you and ease, accessibility and easeability, to get in there, those are wins. Every time that I've invested or, seen people invest in those properties that are closer
yeah,
to interstates,
yeah,
they have to spend less money on marketing because their tenants are rolling in. They're driving past them every day. So they know where to go. And so yeah, that's a good point. And to that too, James, um, in townships and all these cities and counties, they have all their rules and regulations and everything like that. And where you're at, and even like where I'm at, people are trying to safeguard their cities and what businesses move in and how things come. And I've told planners, commissioners, everybody, hey, listen, storage has the lowest carbon footprint.
yeah.
We're not having people come through here all the time. This is not a McDonald's drive-through. We store people's stuff here. We pay taxes to you guys, and we're keeping this place nice. There's not going to be any craziness going on over here. The police aren't going to be over here every night.
Right.
We're doing the city and county a favor by being able to revitalize and keep this nice. We're paying taxes. If you guys want an ice cream shop instead of a storage shop, I'm not your guy.
Right.
I'll go
And it's
spend
going
this
to
money.
cause a
I'll
bunch of
go,
traffic,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? Yeah, I mean, you
I
got an
know.
ice cream shop
Yep.
that's open all summer long. It's going to have more traffic in it than your storage facility in a whole year just over the
Yep.
summer,
That's right. And more
right?
wrecks, more
Yeah, more wrecks,
all that
more
fun stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
more police calls to it,
Yep.
because let's say there's a wreck every other month, and well, okay, let's call it every month in the summer. Well, that's three calls they're going to get just for three wrecks in front of an ice cream store, right? And
Yep.
all because somebody wasn't paying attention and they're trying to pull in to a full parking lot of an ice cream store, right?
Yep.
Or an ice cream shop. Whereas in a 99.9% of the time when you pull into a self-storage facility, it's not sitting right on the road. They pull
Right.
in.
Right.
There's a
Yep.
driveway,
Yep.
at
Yep.
least all the ones that, I mean, I know in the inner cities
Yeah.
and stuff like that, they're right.
Yeah.
There's no space. But most of the rural ones in the secondary and tertiary markets, there's a gap and there's plenty of land. They're going to
Yep.
pull off the road.
Yep.
They're going to pull onto the shoulder, pull off the road, pull in. People are just going to zoom right by them, and just
Yeah.
and traffic doesn't stop.
That's true. And I tell those people like with the cities and county, the officials, that are making those decisions and calls. I tell them all the time, hey, listen, when somebody pulls into my facility, it's my problem. If they take out, half the building with their, 20 foot or 30-foot U-Haul, that's on me. Like we're not calling
Well, it's
the
on me
police. We're
and
not,
them.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, because
We might have to get on
we're
the
gonna definitely
courts
get
later, but
reimbursed for
yeah,
that.
yeah. But yeah, yeah, and to that point too, like that's where I've seen a lot of stuff lately. Um, Everybody has these repairs. There's not one facility that I go and look at
Nice segue.
that doesn't have something wrong with it. From an external or from an intrinsic value standpoint,
Right.
and that's where like I've talked to so many people, and every time I go look at these, hey, what's wrong with it? Oh, it's fine and dandy, everything's working. And then you go and you're doing your due diligence and you're pulling up doors and you're like, all right, this one needs a new latch, this one needs new springs and
Blink, they
stuff.
fall off. Right?
Yeah, or you
Yeah.
can't even open the door. That's the
Yeah. Well,
best.
there you go. Right.
Yeah, but yeah,
The
and that's
the bollards are all leaned over into the building because people backed into them. Right.
yeah, yeah. I went in one the other day. It was the red steel, as they call it. One of the foundational piers or whatever. Half of it was missed. The bottom half of the steel had rusted out because they had a bunch of water damage and stuff. And I just asked the owner. I said, "Hey, man, did you just bought this recently? Did you inspect this?" And he was like, I just didn't know what I was looking at. And I'm like, well, I'm just letting you know we're gonna have to, I'm gonna have to come in here and help you with this because I'm not gonna sleep well at night knowing that your place could fall over.
Yeah.
And to that point too, just in this past year, James, when it comes to acquisitions, because that's what I'm after the next deal. I am, and I've learned from calling for years of hey, let me buy your storage facility. Hey, let me buy your storage facility. When are you going to sell your storage facility? That's really not like, that's not the best go.
Right.
And so one night I was just sitting here thinking, like, how can I get these storage facility owners to talk to me, to tell me the truth? Like if they have damages or like what's going on there, how can I get them to do that? And I started a company called Storage Unit Repair.
Right.
Storage unit repair, obviously, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And what I've been able to do is go around and talk to everybody that I was talking about acquisitions, and change the conversation and say, hey, look, I'm not so worried about buying your facility. Can I help you fix your facility? And man, let me just tell you, the conversations are 30 minutes to an hour. I'm getting a bunch of information and I'm developing those relationships that are really important. And so, man, we fix stuff that are, 100 units. We fix those. Like yesterday, we were at a place that had 1,000 units. And so there's a great need for being able to provide value to these owners and managers in storage. And, if it comes out to where they sell me their facility in the future, cool. If not, hey, listen, like I've developed a relationship. I at least have learned something, and all that has really gone in to help me with my facilities too, because I was the guy out there cleaning the gutters, fixing the latches and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I don't know that I need to be doing this. And so I was able to hire out some friends and people that I know to be able to do this stuff. And the more storage people I ran into, the more I found this to be a problem. And so,
Well, let's talk about this later
yeah,
offline
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
have some ideas for you.
Yeah, I
But I
love it.
don't
I
want
love
to
it.
I don't want to post it on my podcast, not because I don't want people to know, but because the friendship that we've created, I want you to know
Yeah,
first.
yeah, heck
So
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
I'm all about that. Yeah, I'm all about that.
so just keep that in mind. But that's awesome. I'm glad that that you're doing well with it. Let's circle back around and get some more updates and see how you're doing with acquisitions and all. We all know the
Mhm.
market's tough right now. Um, like I said, I do a weekly call every week. Coming up soon in April 23rd, I'm going to have some brokers on that have been in the business some years now. They're going to be talking about the market and how they see it going and the prices of properties. And obviously, right now, money's expensive, so it's hard
Yeah,
to borrow money. They're asking for a lot more down. There's a lot higher end of risk for the banks. Because people are going bankrupt and all that stuff, and we see that as owners and acquisition people, where some people, they don't even think twice about it because it's not in their realm and their world, and that's okay. But I think truly that it's gonna come back around. My brother always claims it comes in a 7 year cycle, and we're already going into 5 years of it. So,
yeah,
or through is it 4 years? 2021,
yeah,
2025. So we're
yeah,
4 years, 5 years into it.
yeah,
Okay, so I would say in the next 2 to 5 years, we're really going to see a huge change in the market, and that's not my prediction or anything. That's just what has been seen over the years of
yeah,
following storage, and I think that it's going to benefit a lot of us financially when it comes to buying properties for cheaper money from the banks and for cheaper prices along with being able to sell our properties to other people who can get cheaper money for a better price.
yep,
So, one of the things that I always talk about is how a cap rate doesn't mean anything to me. And a lot of people go, how do you mean a cap rate? If somebody's selling you a 10 cap, I go, look, it's based on your expenses, not mine. Everything
that's right.
changes when it
Yep.
comes to cap rate. So if you're bringing a property to me and you're saying, hey, I want you to buy this property, I'm going to look at it I don't even care. You can tell me whatever made up number that is because I consider it a made up number. You can tell me
Yeah.
whatever number it is you want. I'm going to do it on my numbers and see what my expense ratio is. If I have a 40, 45%, sometimes 35, sometimes 50, like depends on really what's
Mhm.
happening with that particular property. You know, um, sure, we all want 20% expense ratios, but that's only done with remote management. And with remote management, that's not something that I do. Maybe in the future, I'm working towards that. But when it comes to that expense ratio, you know, could it be a 6 cap? Could it be a 7 cap? They could say it's a 10 cap. For me, it's a 7 cap, so it drops it, more expensive. And then a lot of people are out there selling them, for the I call them the higher cap rates of threes and fours, and
Yeah. Mm.
they're not worth it, but they're stuck. And we might
Yeah.
see that in the next
Yeah.
year or so where people are stuck with the big mortgage payments that they got and they can't do it.
That's
The
right.
days of the 3 and 4 percent expense rate or the interest rates are over,
Yeah.
right? For now,
Yeah.
they're over.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is these people are going to peak out and not be able to afford their properties, and that's an
Yeah.
opportunity for us to come in and remodel that whole thing, not remodel, but remodel in our
Yeah.
underwriting and
Oh
say,
yeah.
look, we know what we're getting into with this, and we're going to plan ahead and buy these
Yeah.
properties for their actual value versus what they think that they're getting.
That's
So,
correct.
and
Yeah.
I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be a good, depending on, obviously we have a new administration in and everybody has their
Yeah.
opinions on that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk politics, but
Yeah.
let's just say it's a conservative president and people that know things about the conservative people is that they're always making money, right? So
Oh
if we
yeah.
can do
Oh yeah.
that in this market, that's what we need to do. So hopefully it all works out for all of us. Um, we'll get back on another call in the next couple of months, do the same
Yeah.
thing, find out where things are going for you. And I appreciate you being on the call. And thank you. I mean, thank you for the
James.
accolades and everything.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, I appreciate you and all you do for storage and the industry and just helping people like me out,
Yeah.
and getting to know and even connect with people because you have guests and stuff come on, and I'll go look them up or send them a message, but hey, man, I saw you on this podcast. I want you, to ask information. So I just appreciate you being able to do what you do and plug in and man, just keep going.
I,
We're gonna keep winning and keep
yeah.
growing, and so. I really appreciate your time today, James,
All
in
right.
this
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you. All
Yeah.
right. See ya.